are you hearing it?
Yay! Guys, last
Hey.
one.
Guilty hype train. Hanging off.
If you hadn't got on the hype train already, it's already left the station.
Yeah,
so
it's
goodbye.
So this is the last Spark of Madness Game of Thrones podcast for at least a little while. Who knows? Maybe we'll do one next week. We've gotten in such a routine. We'll just keep going. We'll just start over.
Yeah. They say that
We'll
the
just-
spark
we'll
that
just do-
shines twice as bright lasts
just-
half as long.
We'll just do fan fiction, and we'll just like talk fan fiction the entire off season for a year and a half.
I can do
Guys,
that.
This is why
We'll
I
switch over to reading the books chapter by chapter in reverse from the last book.
Do
That's what we'll
just do dramatic readings live
In
every
reverse,
Sun- I actually would love to hear Ben do a dramatic reading of the books. See how that goes.
You got to pay money for that, baby.
we could do
That
it like
stuff don't come free.
what's his name from Billy Madison when he does the Shakespeare. You know, is it to be or not to be? That is the question.
Did you ever get your AAA situation resolved?
Oh no, I'm in the basement of my mom and dad's house, so
It's a killer
my car's
basement.
somewhere. Yeah.
So we missed you, Ben. Like after you ducked in and out from our season recap last night, but we got all of your picks for all the questions. But then a lot of that kind of was not thrown out, but a lot changed last night with the finale.
It did.
I'm going to actually pull up our little progress just to see how things have kind of progressed over the season, like where we started and in the middle, and my random pictures that are not helpful at all, but maybe it'll cue you up. Where do you guys think this season ended based on where it started? Do you think it was did it build to something worth like fulfilling for you?
Yes, it did.
Was it a good season overall is where I'm going.
I think it was a good season overall. It wasn't the best season in terms of just pure art. There was a lot of good pieces. It wasn't as intricately woven as better seasons, but there was some epic, beautiful imagery throughout this season that's better than most movies. In fact, a lot of movies in any movie. I would be second to none. But yeah, I think it was a very good season. It's one of the better seasons. But it was not one of the best seasons. But it was great. Things happened that were cool that we wanted to see happen for a long time.
Really though, like kind of the last shot of the season. That's kind of what happened. Like, oh, the White Walkers got through the wall. If you like really think about it, like, I guess Jon and Dany got together too. Those are the two big things because Cersei like was gonna be on their side, but then isn't actually on their side, so that's not really different at all.
No, Jamie left.
I guess
she kicked out Jamie.
that's
You know what I
true.
mean?
That's
That
true.
was a major thing. It's going to play more into the theory of Jamie going to kill Cersei.
Brandon looks
guess
like he's about to explode. I think he needs to. I think he needs to like take a get a
Okay.
massage or something.
before this season, Dany wasn't even on the same continent. So to say that the only thing that happened was the White Walkers knocked down the wall is ignoring the fact that she's on this continent and has taken over territory. It's ignoring the fact that she lost a dragon. It's ignoring the fact that she wiped out a big vanguard of the Lannister army. It seems like it's just overstepping things. Now, was it a rough and tumble season as far as the storytelling and some uneven pacing? I think that's an absolutely fair criticism. But to say
I agree with you, Brandon. I agree with you.
She won a little battle, and her boats landed in Dragonstone. But at the end of the day, like, oh, they figured out the dragons are real and they can't beat them, and there's a little backstabbery. But
real. Are you talking about Dany?
I mean, Cersei. Like, I mean, just like, oh, they saw the enormity of them and the dangerousness of them and the unstoppableness of them. Yeah, but I mean, like that's a lot of stuff, but also not a lot of stuff for it being the second to last season.
I think the finale actually sort of makes not makes an excuse, but helps out the entire season quite a bit. And it's not so much that the finale paid off a lot of things, in my opinion. or so much like wrapped up a lot of different like narrative threads like a normal season finale was. But I do think there was enough in it because it was so long that they were able to kind of flesh out a lot of these other stories that either got rushed through or felt like they weren't progressing as much. So, do you guys, what do you guys think of that? Because I felt like overall, and I know the three of us watched it together. Ben watched it separately, but I know I came out of it kind of more colored by the Sansa storyline than the rest of it. But overall, it was a pretty good episode, I thought.
Oh, I agree with you, Matt. I agree. I thought it was a really good episode. I wish they would have added the extra 30 minutes or so to every one of the rest of the episodes, because that's how long I think this needs to be. It's good that they're going to be that way in season 8, but like I think it would have made this season that much better if there was 30 minutes so they can tell those little intricacies that they had in this one. That this felt like Game of Thrones, because like this last episode there was a little bit of action, not as much action as we've seen in the other two episodes with the dragon and the ice dragon. Shut up, dog.
Sorry. Like, I don't think I could put them any further away in my house. So it's Ghost. It's Ghost.
but I think they had to rush some things that didn't like. This episode, they set up the character weaving really well in this last episode, and I wish they did that more for the other episodes.
Again, to the other point, I do think there were some pacing issues. I think it also feels odd. We talk about how I think Ben's right. If they had a little bit more time, I can't imagine they chose to have the time that they had, right? Why did we not have 10 episodes so they could maybe flesh out some of these stories?
Yeah.
That said, there's been a lot of critiques about, like, I remember some of the criticisms that maybe some people even on this podcast weighed against the first episode about how it moved too slow and there was too much scene setting and everything. Yet here we are at the end of the season and we feel like we didn't have enough scene setting or weaving of the story. So be careful what you wish for.
Well, hold on. Go ahead, Nick. I can defend it. I'll defend myself here.
So I guess in my defense at first it's like, oh, there are 13 episodes of this left, and so like when nothing of super huge meaning, not meaning, because Brandon's gonna go ape shit if I say nothing of huge meaning happened in the first episode, but nothing really catastrophic or huge happened in the first episode. And so kind of going into the season with only 13 episodes left, it's like, oh my God, so many things need to happen, and then not a lot happened. But then retrospectively, when you get further and there are bigger things happening, but they're getting to it by kind of circumventing the story and the character development, it's like, well, shit. Like I want to give a damn after these big things happen. So it kind of made the big spectacle things feel less important. And then like you missed Game of Thrones, so that's why when we're coming back, we just want to see that big spectacle and all the cool things happen.
You just want to see the car wreck. You don't want to know the stories of the people in the car. You just want to see the big spectacle.
One point I want to make, though, to Nick's point, though, I want to agree with you on this. On one point, Nick, like it doesn't have to be the big spectacle. It could be the big moments that we want to see. It doesn't have to be fire-breathing dragon. Big moments of character development. I think, even though I loved how they did it in this last episode, it didn't make sense. It didn't have the same draw.
What is it in your sentence?
When John and Danny came to like made love with each other, because it just happened. You know what I mean? And I think there should have been a moment they had him to knock on the door to put it there. And I think they missed on that opportunity. They told it really cool.
He did knock on the door. I just want to clarify. What do you say? What moment was missing?
I kind of get his point.
I'd like to just understand it. I'm not saying I don't get it.
The sort of budding romance that they had, like it didn't really breathe. It was sort of it felt like forced along through consequence of like their alliance. That then, again, I kind of talked about this last night, or tried to convey it, that really we were relying a lot on the actor and actor. Daenerys and Jon to sort of convey it through their facial expressions. Then like what they were saying and what was happening wasn't so much like furthering like really a reason for them to fall in love, other than that they are two powerful kind of similar roles within their like what their directions were. But like I didn't really get the sense that their relationship was totally earned until like we had that scene in the last episode on the boat where like you can kind of see him feeling bad about it. But it really, to me, I see what Ben's saying. It kind of got pushed along in my mind.
Well, the comment was that you didn't have that moment. I was just trying to figure out what moment you felt was missing.
I'll explain. So, to your point, Matt, the chemistry was great between them. Like it was good. There was not a lot of stuff written to help that chemistry, like to help that love story. What I mean about the moment is like a circumstance that puts them together that suddenly happens. That suddenly happens to make them fall in love, like to make them get together. Procreate, for lack of a better term.
I would say the opposite side would be that I think the one story we really, and I talked about Sam last night, and we didn't get like an extension of that. I thought that was done pretty well. But I think the one that they did an amazing job with the limited amount of time and the limited number of episodes was with Jamie's kind of arc this season. And like his reversal and his turning on Cersei at the end of this episode, at the end of the season, like the context of that scene, like delivers on like, oh, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. But we've also got an entire season worth of evidence that we've been building to this moment. And I didn't feel like especially the Jon and Dany stuff had the same kind of, it felt like they were trying to do two things at once with every scene they were in, rather than one or the other. It felt like it was always kind of furthering this direction that they're going to get together from, like we need to combine their alliances almost to, further other plot stories like the White Walkers and,
You're right, Matt, when you brought up the point earlier about like there was one really good moment written in the story with them on the ship, holding each other. That was very authentic, and they, like you said, they needed more of that little bit to interweave it. But that being said, they had so much time to do it, and they forced a lot of things in. And one mistake that I wish they didn't do was just kill the freaking Greyjoys. Kill them all. Like Theon's the worst character. He's taking up too much time in this precious season. I think that storyline took up too much of other stuff that we should tell more, that I think is more important. Just like the Sand Snakes for Nick. The Greyjoys are just like, get rid of them, man.
Yeah, why was he on the boat? Why was he on the boat with them?
Yeah, why was he in the meeting?
If Yara is dead, he is, at least from Dany's position, the rightful heir to Iron Islands. So he is a king that's in her. He's a member of a court that's on her side. So it's about like showing who's got her banners and etc. Now you could argue that it's in name only because Euron's the one with control, but he's a political pawn at this point.
I would argue that the Greyjoys weren't in the season maybe enough. Like I feel like they should have resolved that storyline. They were in through the second episode, and then Euron they had that battle on the ships, and then there was an episode with Theon for 30 seconds.
He just disappeared.
And then he met Jon, and he's like, Jon? And that was like literally it for them. And then they disappeared for the rest of the season. Like he was after the second episode, it was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah, but we only have 6 episodes left next year. And is that like one of the storylines that we want to follow? Him going and getting Yara back? Like we have 6 episodes.
I think I don't know. I went into this thinking that this season was self-contained, and I think what I really need to do is consider this number 7 of a 13 episode season, and I think that's where they might have been thinking
or a
about
7A with a 7B to follow.
This is the Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't do so. We're getting kind of ahead of ourselves with beyond this episode, but do you think next season will kind of reboot itself at the start, or will they just kind of leave? Sort of like how it didn't reboot, but it like let's touch base with everybody, or do you think it'll kind of just like continue on straight as if it? I don't know if I'm making sense.
In answer to what I think your question is, I think it will reset the threads as far as letting people who's been a year since you've seen it kind of understand where the pieces are. Yeah, and I think that would be. I mean,
I guess
to
you
me, it
have
would be
to.
silly not to.
Yeah.
I think it'd be wise to do the opposite because here's why. The only reason I think they needed to reset everything this last episode is because the chess pieces were totally different. Of having Daenerys come from a different, like, to Westeros. You know what I mean? I think at this point, just get straight to it, man. Get to the Death Star. Let's go. You know what I mean? Let's see what happens. You know, we know what's happening. We know the White Walkers are coming.
So
That's the.
We had an
that's-
episode. We had an episode with a zombie dragon breathing blue fire on a magical wall, and so far, what we've been talking about is whether or not the relationship earned itself between Danny and
Well,
Danny and Jon.
we're summing up the season, right? You mean, hey, listen.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I was geeking out as you to seeing that imagery of the Night's King, right? Like that was the coolest stuff ever. Like I was like, whoa, that's fucking badass. You know, going like that. But if we're summing up the season, we gotta say like, we gotta call a spade, right?
I guess that just shows like what your favorite part of the show is, right? Like to me, like it took me a while to get over the dragons, and so while that was badass, like I really liked the politics and the relationship aspects of the show more than the spectacle.
Me too.
Here's an overarching thing. If you think about just even last season, you had the whole Ramsay Bolton arc. You had an overarching villain who had been oppressing some of our main characters and had been threatening some of our main characters for multiple seasons. You had a major arc that was the culmination of that season was kind of ending that and getting victory over that. It was almost like an end point, or chapter point would be too on the nose, I guess. I think with this season, especially if they weren't going to basically our two main villains are the Night's King and Cersei. You could argue Littlefinger, which is what I think they tried to do here. But I think Littlefinger had also been phased out so much that he wasn't a prime villain the way Ramsay Bolton was front and center. This was a season in which they weren't going to end with a major villain getting its comeuppance. I think we talked about the whole Empire Strikes Back kind of things being in a dark place and stuff. There wasn't going to be kind of a victory accomplishment at the end of this to kind of give it a complete arc like we've had previously.
Do you think we're in a dark place? I would argue we're not even in a dark place.
How much? Okay, let me hear that one. How are we not in a dark place? The Night's King has a dragon, has an army. You have the humans at odds with each other and infighting. They just knocked down the wall.
I would say there's
how could it be dark?
I don't think there's really all that much infighting. It's just Cersei kind of, and we can talk about it, but like Cersei's on an island right now, right? She's kind of
King's Island. King's Island. King's Landing is not
Queen's Island.
It seems like everybody else in the show is aligned other than her.
Yeah, but she controls a lot of different
Well, I don't know. First of all, we don't know what the North are going to think about Dany taking up with his queen. We got the reading of that thing. Was it Sansa that was reading it, who kind of seems confused by it? I don't know that we actually know how well in an alignment they'll be, but they're going to be forced to when it's not going to take long for the Night's King and the Night's Army to get to Winterfell.
Yeah. 10 seconds after the dragon was at the wall, ravens arrived everywhere. Literally 10 seconds later. So they know.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works.
Do you think they sent out ravens? Because they didn't? I go, that's the first thing I say. Send the ravens out. Send the ravens out.
I'm guessing no.
Bran's ravens. The whole reason we got introduced to that shot was we were following Bran's ravens, so he knows.
I guess.
So you think, but we didn't see Bran warg into the ravens, so he also could be Night Kinging it. If you're Matt, like Bran could have just been.
One of my theories was already blown away last night. So like the second we were all in the room watching the Littlefinger trial or whatever, it's like we haven't seen him yet. We haven't seen him in the room.
That's what I said.
There he is.
That's what I said to my brother. That's what I said to my brother. I go, yeah, he's like Arya's Littlefinger.
No.
But
how did she pull that off? She killed herself. She just like turned around real fast.
That was great, even though we saw it coming. But
let's check in on our final death pool tally. So before this, I had my dragon kill. Last night, we also confirmed the kill of Ilaria, I think. We're going to at least count it, Brandon.
Okay. All
right. Then we got the major, maybe not the one major death, because Olenna was relatively big, and I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but Littlefinger died as well. So Ben and I technically tied. I think honestly Ben probably won because I cheated and took like a 3-for-1, and my pick is already like flying around destroying the wall.
No,
still, so.
we could tie. We could, yeah.
Mine's at like still active and not in a pool of blood on the ground. So.
Yeah, but Baelish should come back next year as Arya. So I mean, I feel like that's still in the air.
Hey, that's still in play. You think they'll
Quiet,
carve up his math?
Shut your mouth, Nicholas.
But were you guys surprised at how few deaths there were? I guess it ultimately makes sense, but I expected a handful more to like kind of, I don't know, go into like a more concise direction for the last 6.
I agree, but I think I think we were spoiled by last season's death count. You know, like
especially last episode last season.
Yeah,
alone.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're a little bit spoiled by that. No, I agree. I don't think a lot of people died. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna win the death pool. Oh, good game, Bull. Mountain's gonna die.
I think we should be. I think I'd be careful. The only thing I think about as far as the death pool, right? We always talk about, Game of Thrones subvert your expectations, blah, blah, blah. We all admit we expected a lot more deaths this season. So most of them surviving was stunning in its own way, in some ways. And nobody on the quote unquote, except obviously Viserion, but there weren't any quote unquote good characters.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, that is a value, like a good, interesting fact from this season is that so many people did survive. I will push back on just a little bit in that they put people in situations where they probably should have died, but they gave them kind of mulligan outs. Apparently, if you fall in water at any point, you will survive. So that seems to be a theme.
You talking about the Jon thing?
Jon, Jaime, Bronn, Tormund's being pulled into the water, but he's survived. Just
gotcha.
Yeah.
Jon, Jaime, Jingleheimer Smith.
So let's actually be a little more specific with the finale and do our traditional stock up and stock down. Who wants to do their stock up from the finale first?
My stock up is me because I predicted before the episode that Sansa would kill Littlefinger. That was 90% correct. So my stock up is
to the transitive property.
No, I don't have that. So.
You have my face in the death pool. Can't you like superimpose my face from down here?
Actually, you're right. Hold on, I can do that while you get to yours.
If you want me to do a real one, I'll just say Jaime because he finally realized Cersei for what she is and is moving on. That's it.
Does it stock down or an up?
Stock up, just because he got the hell out of there. That's
he's out of a bad relationship, is what Nick's saying.
Basically,
toxic relationship.
Yes. Yeah, for no doubt. I did like that he seemed to not only get on board with, like, because we saw how he realized the futility of like fighting her, like just Daenerys's army, and with the dragons of the Dothraki, we'll never win. And then I also like that it continued the thread that, did you see that thing? We have no chance. Like he gets it right away, which is like a refreshing take, considering all the crap we've gotten with the maesters and stuff. Like, oh, they're not real.
I don't think you can undercount also the value of Brienne's comments to him, right? When he was leaving, he's like, well, what do you want me to do or whatever? And she was like saying, and this is Brienne, this is a big deal, right? When she's saying, forget oaths, forget honor, forget houses. I mean, there's arguably nobody else on the planet except maybe Jon Snow who would take those things more seriously than Brienne does. Ever since we've known her, it's always been about loyalty and honor. And she's basically saying, screw all that. This trumps that. And I think it's interesting that we got that scene. I think it definitely had an impact.
Well, it's like from the beginning of the season, it was all about like Jaime and Cersei and just like figuring out what they were going to do to survive and win together. And then throughout the season, it became somebody's drag racing down the street. Awesome. It became
dragons.
Yeah, dragon racing. It became him doing what was best for the realm in reality, because I feel like even in episode 4 or whatever, when he was charging at Daenerys trying to spear her, that was him trying to end the war and end the casualties and things like that in some regard. So it's like he took a big turn, and now he's doing what's best for men.
Where do you think he's going? Where do you think his
He's not
next
pushing
step
those
is going to
boys
be?
out towers.
I don't know what his next step is.
I
guess
what do you think? Do you think he'll immediately show up and join them, or
Talking about destination, like literally where he's.
No, I guess like I guess the assumption is that he's going to go team up with Daenerys and everybody, and go meet up with Tyrion again. Do you think that's like where we pick up with him right off the bat? I think it would have.
I don't think it's me personally. I don't think it's right off the bat. I think they start following the story of the Northern things and give us a little bit enough rope to forget about Jaime maybe a little bit, and then all of a sudden he'll show up and have an impact, and it'll be like, oh hey. So I think that, and there may be at that point, it won't take them long to realize that Cersei's betrayed them. She's not even sending like a token force as an act, so it won't take them that long. So I think when he first shows up, it might be they might not trust him. There might be some conflict there as they don't trust him. Yeah,
but I think I agree with you. I think Bran will know to trust him because Bran sees all. Like Bran will know. Like Bran can look and.
We did learn this week.
You pushed me out the window.
Yeah,
that's true.
Exactly. Right.
I actually want to see. Yeah, some of these interesting meetups have been just about. Oh yeah, they got some beef to talk about.
I can't wait to see the Jaime face of like when he.
I do think it was interesting.
Oh crap!
I know we're not necessarily talking about the episode chronologically, so I'm not sure where this fits in. But I do think it was interesting that, although Bran can access anything that happened in history, it doesn't necessarily mean he knows everything that he's seeing and has it. That he still needed that information from Sam.
It's not like a big download that zaps into him. Yeah,
like
he's got to Google search it first.
He's got access. He's got the DVR. He's got the VCR tapes. He can go back and watch anything, but that doesn't mean he's got it all perfectly in memory. I also thought it was interesting. The thing with Sam was kind of questioning me because we were really, at least the impression I had when Gilly made that comment and then he kind of interrupted her, it was that he wasn't paying attention. But in retrospect, after kind of watching it, I mean, what book was she reading, right? She's reading the books that he had been transcribing. So it's most likely he'd already transcribed it. He just didn't realize that it mattered. Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark. Oh, that's interesting. It's someone that probably lived at the castle that Jon lived at. I don't think he was putting two and two together until he heard Bran say it, and then suddenly the light bulb went off. So I thought that was really, I thought it was interesting. Unfortunately, Gilly's not going to get credit for saying it too. But again, those are books that he was transcribing, which talk about the value, right? There's a lot of information he probably has just from transcribing. Ask Jorah.
My brother and sister-in-law were like, well, I don't understand why Bran is suddenly told Sam all that it didn't make sense. I go, well, yes, it does make sense. And this is like, so when he gave all the information about Jon Snow to Sam is one of two. One, he can't tell anybody because that he can't trust, and he can't tell his sisters because it will throw a wrench politically and stuff. So he told someone who's best friends with Jon Snow, but also someone he can trust. This knowledge
goes out of his way to say you're a good person before he tells him. So.
Absolutely.
I did think it was interesting, though. He did not claim. This is the type of stuff he talked about, how I can see the past, I can see the present. He did not say I can see the future, even though a lot of people, some of his visions in the past, we know there's been scenes of it, like the Baylor Sept blowing up. He saw the wildfire ahead of time. So I thought it's interesting he didn't claim foresight.
He did also see the dragon over Westeros. The shadow of the dragon. What dragon is that?
But
is that
who was riding the dragon? It's exactly right. We've always assumed it was Daenerys, but now we have to
well, didn't they show like it started snowing in King's Landing in the last episode, and the shadow over King's Landing was without snow?
Snow fell on Jaime's hand as he was pulling a glove, which I think that's very symbolic. He was pulling a glove over his gold hand. That's not something we've seen him do before. Hiding his identity, basically hiding that part of him. And as he's doing that, snow fell onto his hand. We've never seen snow in King's Landing.
They had those were some cool shots of the storm coming in that they did, and showing the more of the breadth of the city and the tops of the houses and stuff.
Shot wise, I'd be curious if anybody had thought there was a bad shot I mean, try to call out the bad shots of the season. Talk about scenes and writing, but the shots, oh my god.
Oh yeah,
I think the shot that Euron took at what's his face at the beginning of the parlay was kind of a bad shot.
Tyrion, a pot shot.
I have your sister. I'm gonna kill her.
Oh, you mean yeah.
I ain't got no nuts. It's my power, you know.
I'm gonna make Ben mad. I'm gonna say my stock up for this episode was Theon. I'm gonna pick a controversial one. Just because we got because we saw him going like sort of hitting the path to that redemption story. Like even though he didn't finish it, and I kind of agree with Nick that I think we should have wrapped that up, and maybe they have bigger and better plans later. But I like the scene where he got to sort of express and sort of show remorse more directly and not being like assaulted for it to Jon. And that little the scene in the throne room, I thought that was really good. And then even though his little fight to like get the trust of the like 15 sailors around them like went really awkward, that was a good moment for him to sort of like pick himself like off the dirt and get back up. Like to see that and see him fight back again no matter what it would cost him was I thought a good moment. So
doesn't something like that happen in Kickboxer? Doesn't Van Damme like kick somebody in the nuts, like this Chinese guy, and he's just like, oh. And then Van Damme's like, oh.
Why did that guy
keep
kicking?
Like,
why did that guy keep going with it? Like he kept he was like, what's going on here? Hey, dude, just punch him. That seemed to have been working. Like, what are you doing?
There's a scene in Star Trek 6 where Captain Kirk fights this creature in this prison planet, and he kicks him in the nuts, and nothing happens. He goes, "Doesn't things have like or no?" He fights this thing, and he kicks it right in the knee.
And that's not where
he goes, "I just kicked him in the knees." He goes, "Not everybody has their genitals in the same place," because his genitals were in his knees.
So as far as the general reference and the whole thing that Theon was going through, I thought that was an interesting callback to how the episode opened. Right, you had the scene where you had Jaime and Bronn talking about the army, and they were making all sorts of different references to their motivations and what usually motivates warriors. This was an interesting bookend as a counterpoint to say, yes, it's a very specifically niche issue, but here's an issue where that wasn't the case.
Maybe it is all cocks in the end.
Yes.
So
every time Jaime talks like that, I just think he should be sipping tea. He's like, how preposterous. It's like, indubitably. It just kind of
really should have got the
little bit above.
So, Ben, did you have a different stock up?
Well, the right answer, as Brandon would say, would be the Night King, because his stock is just going way up this season. But I already said him. My other stock up would be actually Jon Snow. Jon Snow, or Aegon, as we should call him, because not only he has the queen, that he also is getting more validation from other people of his rightful heir to the throne, that we found that he's not a bastard. And not the fact that they just know he's not his dad's not Ned Stark, but also the fact that it's the wedlock having the child makes him the rightful heir to the throne.
And it's okay to sleep with a family member if you don't know it's your family member.
Yeah.
Pretty much every single goal he had. Pretty much every single goal he had for this season's been accomplished, in addition to some sub goals. So he wanted to get Dragonglass. He talked about that from the very beginning. Well, you're shaking your head, Matt, but I don't.
I'm shaking my head because his goals are all accomplished. They just happened. He just kind of made him. He just kind of put himself in the places, and then did like.
Give the guy a break. He died. He got all his goals never.
Wait a second. If your criteria is they have to not get goals that happen, and they can't travel to the places to make them happen, then you're setting some pretty high bars.
No, but like if you just kind of like the white, like go and kidnap the white. He just kind of was there, and just the writing kind of like
Yes,
but I'm not saying that was his goal.
I know, but I just and
But also,
dragon. The here. Where's the dragon? We're here for the dragon glass. And oh, by the way, here is the proof to get Danny on your side for this intermediate goal that just happens to be here. All the cave drawings. It just seemed like a lot of things kind of happened in his favor along the way that were beyond his personal actions, like making it happen. If that makes sense.
I think that's fair. And to the sub goal point, I think it's true. But he a big part is he knew Dragonglass was going to be necessary for this war. He found out that Dragonglass was on Dragonstone, and he knew he had to go south, even though nobody wanted him to. Everybody said it's dangerous. Starks don't go south. They don't travel well south. That was still something that was something he took some agency in and going to get that. He kept pleading his case. Now, as far as the idea, I agree the plan was a little wonky as far as the whole capturing right, but that was Tyrion's plan. It was Tyrion's idea on how to help him accomplish his goal. His goal being, hey, humans, hey, living, we got something more important to do than worrying about who's sitting on the crown, or excuse me, sitting on the throne. So I think that was one of his goals. I think Ben's made an excellent pick here. That, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You rock, Ben.
It's all right. It's pretty good.
Swish.
And in the end, you could say he did ride a dragon.
Whoa!
He just dropped that in there, dropping the bucket in the silence.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the real dragon. So
Dario was
Does he
Dario
scream
was the
Aunt
first
Danny?
to use that reference last season when he was talking to Jorah, talking about I don't think you're too old to ride a dragon or to survive the ride. He made some offhanded reference to it when they broke into the Dothrak.
So Brandon, who's your stock up, or do you have, or would you have said Jon Snow?
I think Jon Snow is a strong answer. Totally don't disagree with that whatsoever. The other one, though, that really jumped out to me this episode was actually Ned Stark. Obviously, Ned hasn't been around since season 1, but I think his legacy is his kids, is the kids that he raised, right? So you've got Arya, you've got obviously you have Sansa, you have Jon, who we've been talking about. Now, Jon's not his biological son, but he definitely raised him.
And Theon too.
I was going to get there, but thank you. Theon, I really love that discussion, even though I agree Theon's arc has not been the most interesting to me, but that discussion with Jon sitting there making a case to him about, you were raised with the Starks. That's you have a choice to make as far as who you're going to be and what you're going to do. And if you think about it, he's really talking about things that are going to play into him when he finds out that he's not a Stark, that he's a Targaryen. He's going to have to. It is absolutely foreshadowing. He's going to have to make decisions about who he's going to be and who he wants to be.
He already made the decisions in that scene. I felt like he kind of was not only telling Theon, like, you don't have to choose, you're both sides. And I thought that was sort of like, oh, I'm going to do that later. Like, he
doesn't know what's happening later, so you can't say he's taking agency in a decision he's not even aware he's going to have.
I know, but I feel like he is literally telling Theon a very similar circumstance of, like, you have two competing families to, like, you don't need to pick a side. So I felt like that was partially why that was such a great scene, was that it plays into Jon's character even just as much as it was playing into, like, him talking to Theon and talking him up, and
which is it sounds like you're actually you're just saying you're agreeing with me then.
Oh yeah, I'm not fighting you at all. Yeah,
okay.
I'm saying that I thought it was I agree.
Yeah, I just thought it's really interesting. The honor that he stood for, that you could make, again, it's not the first time we've seen a quote unquote Stark make a dumb decision in the name of honor in King's Landing that almost cost him their life or was very costly. But I just thought it was a lot of throwbacks to who Ned was and what he was about. I thought it was cool.
What would he say if he saw Sansa pass the sentence but Arya swing the sword?
I think that's really interesting too, because they specifically were talking about how they missed father, and then she said they made a hard reference to it without the what we know as viewers is what Ned would have said about it. And I think that was intentional for us to know as viewers that to be thinking about Ned. It was yet another reason to get us thinking about Ned. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I've heard some people say that in their minds, Arya and Sansa are kind of acting as one, and where Arya is kind of like the political mind and the ruler mind, and Arya Sansa is
Sansa.
that, and Arya is an extension of execution of power, not just literal
General.
execution.
The
So
general.
yeah, one is an extension. One is almost like a decider, a ruler on deciding what the power is, and the other it's almost like Arya's her hand if she was Queen of the North, for example. But I think that, to your point, that's not literally what Ned would have probably said and how that goes, but I still found it very interesting.
Yeah. Nice.
So let's go to Stock Down. I've got it's more so the story than like a specific character, but yeah, let's just start there. Who cares? Oh shoot, I don't have the right person queued. There we go. Let's start with the Littlefinger, how that played out, because this was really my biggest problem with the last probably 2 or 3 episodes, was how the Littlefinger death and how that played out. And I rewatched the episode today, and for last night I was feeling like, oh, that wasn't satisfying at all. Littlefinger, they just killed him abruptly and for no reason, or like, how did they come to that decision? And he just died. But rewatching it, it's like it's still a pretty well acted scene, and what they call out and how they kind of trickle it out, and he kind of starts to realize, and he kind of breaks down, and he's on his knees, and like the way the scene played out was really good. It's just how Sansa and Arya arrived at this destination made no sense. There was a huge scene or two missing that I feel like they really needed to tie this together for where they came together, because before this episode, and even with the one scene they showed, and you can like read into it a little bit, I guess, with Littlefinger said that Arya would want to be Lady of Winterfell, but oh wait, in the last episode she said she never would want to be that, so that means he's manipulating her, and he turned. But I mean, it just felt very misleading for 2 or 3 episodes for the sake of just this payoff of him getting killed. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I think this is a problem that I've had with the show as a whole. Still the best show probably on TV, but they diluted his death. Like earlier on season 3, season 4, he was like probably one of my favorite characters because he had such a hand in everything. The Red Wedding, not necessarily a hand in that, but like he was always involved with everything. Even given Sansa to
I mean, Sansa listed him. Sansa listed everything he's done, because apparently Bran just was like, "Oh, let me rewind my VHSs here."
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much of that information she got from him. A lot of what she said she was aware of.
Yeah,
except for the stuff that happened with Ned specifically.
Yeah,
but this entire season, he was kind of mumbling and bumbling and tripping his way around a little bit, and then you thought kind of the last 2 episodes maybe he was getting one over on Sansa. And then that's how he goes out. But like seasons 1 through 4, he was like primo Game of Thrones player. And so that him to go this way, it's not as valuable. Like that's what I said the other day in terms of like, Clegane Bowl. Like Clegane Bowl would have been great season 5, but like the hype has kind of died down for me and how the Hound's been playing and things like that. It's just they have taken these characters who are at like the peak of their arc, and they could just take advantage of the peak of that arc and do crazy things, but they let them like kind of come back down, and then they're getting rid of them at like the wrong time to where it doesn't have the payoff that it would otherwise. I don't know.
I think the biggest challenge with Littlefinger, I agree with Nick that in the mid seasons he was one of my favorite characters to watch, and I think a lot of that was because he had somebody to pit against him in the same type of arena. It was him versus Varys, right?
100%.
So, the Spider. So when you have 2 political players playing their games and they're having their own battles, and Roz, for example, was a victim of that battle. We got to see, that's the prostitute that Baelish ended up giving to the king to shoot with arrows.
Yep.
She was Varys' spy, and Littlefinger found out about it, and that was like a political maneuverings, and then the speeches they would have against each other. That was him in his prime. We're removed from that. The pieces have moved. There's a lot of things going on, overarching story, and Baelish I don't think fit in as well as he did then. So I think he definitely had fell off as far as how it worked. He was still doing maneuverings, but he didn't have an opponent that was going up against him. It was him trying to manipulate all these people and outsmart him, but he didn't have anybody he was competing against. So in that the character was not at his height when we've now seen him die, I don't disagree. I'm not sure that it would have made sense for them to manufacture somebody to be his equal to then come in and have political fights.
I don't even think that you needed to manufacture anything. Just have him. I don't know. It seemed to make sense.
Well, the whole show is manufactured.
I mean, it seemed to make sense at like halfway through the season. We talked about him defecting and leaving. Like, why didn't? Yeah. Like, I don't know.
Or I could have seen him like a stronger power play after his Knights of the Vale helped take over Winterfell and Jon leaves. Like there could have been a stronger power play with Sansa together that would have, I think, built his character up a little more. Whereas he's just like failing at trying to be political. I don't know, something like that would have been.
He was definitely not as strong as he was in the mid seasons at his politicalness, but I don't necessarily think it's bad storytelling for someone to not be as good as they used to be.
Well, and even that, it's not even so much that. It's just the way they arrived at his demise felt. Felt with it's more the story of Sansa and Arya, like just kind of being forced to get mad at each other while he is coasting in the background for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we figured it all out, and now you're gonna die.
I totally agree. I think the biggest problems that I had with it, because I agree with you, Arya and Sansa, there was significant communication that you would have thought would have organically happened that we weren't exposed to. I like the idea of Sansa kind of figuring. We weren't given any reason to believe that Arya helped her figure it out, right? As far as what we were shown, it was Sansa kind of figuring out what Baelish was up to and learning that. It doesn't necessarily make sense because we saw these butting heads with her and Arya with no resolution until that surprise scene. So that felt unsatisfactory as far as how they were resolving that. But as far as the way Sansa figured Baelish out and turned on him, I like that part.
And her line, let's play a little game. I like to play a little game. The callback to that was great. That was really good.
Well, it made a lot of sense because she's got so much data, like to the point we were talking earlier. She saw him push Lysa out the moon door. She saw him maneuver around. And we talked about how she was turning in. Well, we didn't, but she was turning into Dark Sansa when she had like the black feathered thing that she'd made and everything else. She was kind of becoming smart and wise in the way he's doing it. Then he sold her off to the Boltons, and things went super downhill quick. But there were a lot of lessons she learned. She knew how twisted he was. And there's been other hints this season that she knows not to trust him. The comments about how he never gives a dagger away for anything. He never does anything without gain. She knew he was up to something, even though we never got to see. We didn't get a lot of time with her to figure out that she was like sleuthing it together. But so to me, the Sansa Littlefinger stuff made sense. But I'm in full agreement that the Arya Sansa things it was disjointed.
Sorry, Ben, I cut you off. You've been on the Littlefinger thing for a while, so you've been kind of calling his death from the start. How did this play out for you?
Well, I kind of agree with you to an extent, like that they didn't do it as intricate as they could have, a good payoff. I kind of wanted to see no payoff where like I said, Arya was going to be Littlefinger already. But here's what I think why it works. I've watched in the past the reality TV show Survivor, and there's different. I don't watch anymore because I'm kind of over it. But there's different contestants that go on there, and the ones that are sneaky, they get really, really, really far. But then everything comes up, comes out. You know what I mean? And then they'll never make it. They'll never win the game. So to me, this felt like a realistic because all the sneaky, conniving, sneaky stuff that he did ended up to okay, this is as far as you're going to go. You got pretty far on it, but you're not going to go any farther. And I think it's we all know you're a liar and sneaky.
Now all I can think of is everybody in the back room, to a closet camera, reading the note they've written, Glover. Littlefinger.
All I was picturing was George R.R. Martin, in 90 whatever, when he's writing the book or the note that Littlefinger's gonna die. He's watching Survivor.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
I got it.
I love the reference, Ben. I'm actually still a huge Survivor fan, and I love the intricacies of the game. And to your point, I think it's a really good analogy. When someone's playing sneaky, it'll get them pretty far. However, when they get towards the end, the people that they've knocked off that don't trust them, that they now have to rely on, don't. And it's almost like they can only go to a certain point and then they're stopped. I love the analogy.
It gets you real far. There was a guy who did a Survivor. I forget his name. He did it twice. Russell. I loved him, but he was just too much of a sneaky backstabber. You know
Russell Hantz, one of the biggest a-holes in Survivor. Very effective, but again, hit hard cap.
Speaking of one of the biggest a-holes, I don't think we'll get to everybody doing a stock down, but I think we'd be remiss not to talk about Cersei in this episode. So apparently this all was a big plan for her to send Euron away like that, and she kind of predicted it. And her lie, it was like she's playing Tyrion, and it was all to like
she's playing both
get
sides.
them to leave, I guess. And then she was never going to commit troops, so that then while they're off fighting, she can take more land, like she can get more advantage while they're off fighting. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, get her lands back.
I think you're reading it correctly. It's just your tone as you're reading it.
Well, she was predicting that no matter what came of the truce, that she would have Euron improvise something to leave. Like, because he wouldn't have known about the White Walker, like how to respond to it until it was there, right? So
they knew what the plan was, that they were going to bring them proof of the undead army, because that's the whole reason Tyrion went there, to say, listen, we're going to show you something. We've got something important. It wasn't like it's a big surprise, and they allowed him to march on in and march up and everything without knowing a little bit of what was going on. So I don't think it's preposterous, even though we didn't see scenes of her coming up with this plan with Euron. I don't think it's preposterous that they had something there, even though they didn't know exactly what it would look like.
Well, I think it was after the fact. I mean, he didn't leave right away. He just left that meeting. I think it was after the fact that she convinced him. You mean, I don't think that was a ploy.
So he left, and then afterwards she was like, "Oh, you think he would walk away?" And she now got him to go and do what she wanted.
Yeah, I think she to corner him, said, "Listen, this is what happened." However, the people think, well, we're going to be safe on an island. No, you're not. There's a flying dragon that can get to you. And the Night King, he'll fly over there.
I think that's actually a good. You're right, but I think that's actually a good thing, because it underscores the value that they didn't know that the Night King raised their dragon. They know they lost a dragon. They don't know he gained one.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting. But no, to your point, I actually think she talked to him afterwards. That's what I assume.
So do you think she predicted, she kind of knew in the moment that she was going to agree to the truce and try and get Jon to step away? Then she had a backup plan, assuming that Jon wouldn't go along with it, that she would storm off and just not go with it. But then also that she would then
wait. I don't know. I don't think we at any point were told that was part of the plan, that her storming off and Jon.
Well, but
the Euron left before Jon did.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I guess so are you saying that her proposing the like Jon wrinkle, which he then rejected because he bent the knee to Daenerys, was that in her mind going into it or not?
I don't know.
She just kind of going with it.
I think it could be either. I think maybe she had an inkling that they were together, but an alliance had not been announced yet, and so that was her way to smoke it out. I think it also could have been just completely legitimate that she thought that there hadn't been one, and so she just wanted to try to, because she knew he would keep his word. I don't necessarily think that it was like, okay, so I'm going to say this and then I'm going to walk away. Although even if that was the case, I don't know that that's necessarily bad. But
I feel like go ahead, Nick.
I feel like the whole time her plan was to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and fight with you guys, but not actually be on their side. And then Jon not bending a knee was kind of a a roundabout way for them to have some of the in chambers conversation that they wanted to have, like between Tyrion and her, to get to the same place, they wound up at.
Well,
I definitely think there was a goal of we want to get Tyrion and Cersei in a room together because I think that was worth it because I think that was a fantastic scene. And the idea that Cersei would go into this knowing that she wasn't going to agree, but that they needed her to or wanted them to very badly, knowing that there's probably something I can get for that. I think it makes sense for her to ask for Jon to bend. Actually, she didn't ask for Jon to bend the knee. If you think about it, she asked Jon to just stay out of it. Yeah. Basically, our Daenerys and I are going to fight when this is over, and Jon, the North, is going to stay out of it. She didn't ask for too much, and I thought it made. I think it fits with the motivation of the character. What can I get out of this since I know they want my agreement?
That made total sense, but then, like, I guess what I'm getting at is it sort of seemed like, and what they talked about, especially with Tyrion, like. The directors after the show were like, oh, she was playing Tyrion and she's, and then at the end it was like, oh, did you really think that was the case? I have this thing happening and this thing happening. I know everything. It seemed like they're trying to portray her as like a mastermind in this situation to get what she wanted. Did you not get that impression, or am I just reading into it?
I have to say I haven't watched the after thing where the directors are talking about the scene, so I don't know about that. I didn't necessarily get that she was manipulating Tyrion so much as because he came to her. She wasn't like asking to talk to him or anything. But on the same token, he did walk away believing that she had agreed to it, and we know that she didn't do it sincerely. So whether or not you consider that master manipulation,
no, not even just Tyrion, just the entire sequence of events. It felt like they were trying to show that she was plotting to a very specific end.
Well, she's not pregnant, so she is kind of a mastermind.
Oh, snap. OBGYN Nick in the house.
So
Tyrion gives her the wine. She doesn't drink it. She's just sitting there in the conversation with her hand like this the whole time. She's playing it up.
Yes.
She's using
She's like, fake, oh, I'm so sick this morning. Oh.
Nick's got a good point. If she isn't pregnant, you could make an argument that she's a master manipulator because she's got everybody believing it.
Well, what is she then? What is she? Like,
she's just using the fact that she might be pregnant to make people reasonably believe that she cares less about being the queen than protecting her family. That's what, yeah.
But to what end? To what end is that helping?
To manipulate people, to make them believe that she's willing to protect her family over being the queen, and be on their side. That way they believe that she's pregnant. She wants to protect her lineage over keeping her throne.
But I guess she's convinced that
this is actually a continuation of an earlier conversation. You seem to find no value in the fact that with just using words, Cersei got an entire Dothraki horde and an entire unsullied army and 2 dragons to leave the premises and to leave central Westeros, and you seem to find no value in that.
I guess does it come down to like a timing thing then? Like, because once they hear, like, are they gonna does she expect them to just storm through? Yeah, okay, nodding. All right.
Hold on. It comes down to timing for 2 reasons. One, she thinks they're going to get, even if they win, she thinks they're going to get decimated against the undead, and she's probably not wrong. And we know they literally told us this episode she's got more troops, very well-trained troops coming from Westeros, the Golden Company. So yeah, timing is really important to her.
I guess okay, yeah, all right. I still think it was very fly by the seat of your pants and then rationalize it in between, because the Euron stuff. Then at that point, the Euron stuff doesn't make a lot of sense, other than it's just like, hey, Euron, come up with something to leave.
It makes sense for the purpose that she said, in that they don't want them knowing what Euron's doing. They think Euron's leaving to just leave, when in actuality he's going to get a whole bunch more troops, very high skilled trained troops.
So Tyrion's gonna catch him, and
I think the bigger argument here's your point. Here's something for you, Matt. The bigger argument is, why did she let Jaime, who knows all this now, leave? She should have killed him, or at least put him in prison, because he knows what they're doing. And so as soon as he does catch up to the North, they're going to know everything he knows.
Because she loves him. Because she loves him. That's what I think, because she still loves him. I think there was as both. You mean as a lover? I think she had that one more signal, but she didn't put that one more signal because for the Mountain to slice his head off. I think she still loved him.
Killing both her brothers with the Mountain episode.
Yeah, Or maybe, maybe she's.
What'd you guys think about the Hound and Mountain discussion? I know you're probably disappointed in no Clegane Bowl, but do you have a thought about his comments to his brother about?
Loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. So it's funny because I know I know how it's going to end. Someone else is coming for you, and it's like clearly the Hound has vengeance beyond vengeance, and it was awesome how everybody's afraid of this giant, crazy zombie thing, but the Hound's not. The Hound's going to kill him. I like that moment. I like it's going to set up the Clegane Bowl. What do you think about it?
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, it was a good moment. I don't know if we'll ever get Clegane Bowl. Maybe, hopefully, but I don't know.
They're gonna go at it.
Was your argument earlier, right?
What's that?
It's already past its prime as far as they value its return. Prime.
Definitely, yeah.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
For all we knew that we thought the Hound was dead for 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Like so like
if the Hound came back if the Hound came back resurrected and it was Lannister men that killed the little preacher town and the Hound went hellbent towards King's Landing to fucking kill Cersei because Lannister men killed his friends, that would be better. But now that storyline has been fluffed up and he went north of the wall to capture a white, and now it means a lot less than it could have.
No, it means more because he's on the side of good. His character arc is changing. He's becoming a better human being.
Now I'm curious, Nick, when you think about the criticism of the writing, do you differentiate between the show and the books, even though you're not a reader of the books? Because a lot of the decisions you're talking about were set in stone in the books before the writers of the show ever even got a hold of it.
I mean, there's so much more in the books that I would like to believe that the Hound is getting more of an arc, so that if the Clegane Bowl happened, I would believe that George is building it more than they're able to in the show.
How did he not have an arc, Nick? Like, how does he not have an arc?
What did he do this season? What did he do this season, Ben?
The Hound?
Yes. The Hound? He volunteered. He did something for the greater good this season. He went with the.
He was doing that last season too, when he helped build the church and taking care of those people.
Yeah, and we didn't see him. We only saw him for one episode. It's more steps and more steps of becoming a better human being. You know what I mean? Making different life decisions and trying to. One of my favorite moments, along with the mountain confrontation, was him and Brienne talking about Arya. I thought that was wonderful. It kind of showed their arc together. Like, our girl's all grown up and killing people. You know, he was like a dad figure. He loved, like, he really did care about her. And she and Sansa were the few, like the little bit of like seeds that kind of start the formation of him kind of like changing into a better person. He always was a better person. He's always the most deep. He's probably the most deep and conflicted person in the whole show. That arc is getting. He's kind of like a Darth Vader, getting good and good. You know, I think he was very important for this season because he's doing something for a greater cause. You know what I mean? He's a minor character, but he's a very important character. He's had a huge arc. You know, at one point we thought he's dead. You know, and that was disappointing. No, I think
in the books his identity as being alive isn't even confirmed. There's a character that we think is him, and it's just been he's a gravedigger at a monastery. So they kind of tied it in with the religious reference by him being having Al Swearingen be his preacher. But the reference actually it's interesting because the books you don't even know I didn't even know for a fact he was back.
Yeah, I love that scene, that season, that episode last season. So no, I think he's had a huge arc to this whole series more than anybody.
I mean, it's one of. Go ahead.
He had 3 to 5 minutes of dialogue this entire season. Like, I know he's been on the side of the good guys, but like he's had more important arcs and bigger swings.
Surely you don't mean that? Yeah, because he probably spent 3 to 5 minutes just telling what he was seeing in the flames.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not talking about an arc in a single season. I'm talking about an arc in the whole show. You know what I mean? There's only so much screen time you can get for different characters.
I mean, it's obvious that they're choosing to. I think this was a clear, explicit signal that it will happen. That the creators are aware that people want it, and we are going to make it happen. Do you guys think so? Because I think this was like this is the alarm. Like, it will happen at some point, just not yet. And the way the Dragon Pit scene actually went down, like, there was no way to have it happen this episode. So I think it'll be there in the future.
I'll say that I don't know, and it's been something that people have been rumored for a while, and we definitely got the big tease this episode, which didn't surprise me because it is so big. I don't know that I have a different take than Ben, and that when he came up and said, "Brother, you know how it's going to end for you," or something like that.
We both know.
My initial read of that was he was not saying it was going to be him. I don't know what else it would be, so I'm sure that that's just wrong initial read. But for some reason, it landed a little bit differently with me. So to your point on, we definitely are going to have a Kogang Bowl. I'd put myself in a probably range, not
maybe Arya. Maybe Arya, because maybe like he's still on Arya's list, the Mountain. You know, maybe Arya will kill him.
Was he on his list? Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, he is.
Because he was leading the army that was when Polliver and them captured her before. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
So it seems, projecting a little bit because we've been going for a while, it seems like we're going to go into...
Can I just hit my stock down real quick for one thing?
Yeah.
All of Westeros. That's it. Westeros stock is down.
My stock down is the wall.
Sell. Is Tormund alive, Nick?
I hope so.
Yeah, he's
They should have drug him under the water if he's dead. So I like to believe that he's alive.
Oh, there's the Matt theory on water. Because the wall was melted where the dragon fell, there will be some water involved.
There's water, which means he's alive. He'll fall like hundreds of stories to the ground and rubble and be totally fine.
He's just gonna have like a shield snowboard that he's like going down the collapsing wall on.
Here's another thought. In the books, Beric Dondarrion finds Catelyn Stark and gives up his life force basically for her. Beric Dondarrion's gone, right? What if Tormund dies, but Beric Dondarrion, having gained respect for him or whatever, basically gives up his life to bring Tormund back?
They didn't build up enough. They haven't built up enough.
It's just
it's almost like I don't think that stopped them this season.
If they're gonna do that, he'll give it to the Hound. I mean, I really do. I think because the guy who killed him. So I think that's what's gonna happen if he's gonna do that.
So looking at the rest, next season, we've got 2 years before we get more content.
I've heard conflicting things on this. So I'd been hearing that they were warning people that it might be a couple of years till it comes back. It might be 2019. I've also heard though that they plan on starting filming again in October. So it's possible. I think there's nothing known for sure. It's possible that we'll still get it next year, but it might be later. I think it is also possible it goes to 2019. So I don't know that we know for sure.
Well, I just don't want them. I wanted them to really mind their P's and Q's and really write some good stuff, so it's not wasted. So take your time and write it really good, so that it's a more interweaving show than this season.
Yeah,
they need Mythbusters to do some Raven tests and send them the data.
Yeah, I think the last 6 are going to be gold. Like, I think they'll with the added length too. Thinking about adding, if you added 30 minutes to all but the last episode, like, think of how much more they could have done with even this season.
I said that earlier, Matt. You're taking it again from me.
They need a web series.
It was my original idea. So, Ben, shut up. I'm just kidding.
They need a web series of ravens flying, and they say it's cut footage.
Yeah. They should do like a live cam of like a eagle, like what they do with an eagle's nest, just with ravens like flying over and seeing random stuff.
They put it on the Ravens website and they say it's cut footage from previous seasons.
So good. That's such a great idea.
Someone should do a web comic of the Ravens of Westeros, just like their comments about life, kind of like the appliances in the Flintstones. It's a living, just flying around.
Well, guys, we've come to the end, I think. 7 weeks. 7 weeks. It's been fun. I've enjoyed this quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to the last 6 episodes when we do it. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it some more in between, off and on. Where I think we're gonna have to do some like intermediate Game of Thrones podcasts because we'll be going through withdrawal.
Yeah.
So
Fan theories and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be our Facebook. We're gonna have to make our like Facebook chat where most of the time it's Brandon posting all the stuff he's finding. We just need to collect those after like a month and then just share them all at once on a podcast.
Maybe have a contest or something. I just wanted, before we end this, special thanks to Matt and all the stuff that he's done and the time he's put in to get this organized, to run this show, to put the video stuff together that looks phenomenal. Literally would not have happened without all the stuff you're doing.
Get
Matt.
your foot off the camera.
Technical difficulties. I gotta go.
Nah, it's incredible all the work that you put into it. It's amazing.
Yes.
And I'm appreciative just as someone on the side. So thank you for all that work.
Yeah,
been fun. Well, thanks.
Get back to work.
Get back to work. Well, thanks everybody for listening or watching all year, and keep following our Facebook page, our YouTube page, Twitter to see all the other stuff we're doing. We do movies every week too, so keep an eye out.
Wish you best fortune in the wars to come.
Yep. All right. See ya.